The debate surrounding the tax reform bills, particularly the proposed changes to Nigeria's value-added tax allocation formula, has sparked significant reactions from stakeholders across the nation. Governors of the 19 northern states, traditional rulers, and other stakeholders have expressed concerns about increasing the derivation-based model for VAT distribution from 20% to 60%. The crux of the issue lies in the shift from the current remittance-based derivation model influenced by company headquarters locations to a consumption-based model that allocates VAT revenues based on where goods and services are consumed. Well, joining me for more on this, I have with me Baba Yusuf, strategist, policy advisor, and Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company. Thank you, Baba Yusuf, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Perpetua.
All right. Well, I guess some of us were wrong to think we were getting closer to the end of this journey. However, it is proving to be a difficult one. What's your assessment of the process so far?
Well, I'm happy that the process has thrown up issues. Emotions are set high because, in my opinion, at the end of the day, the outcome of this reform would have gone through the rigors of legislation. It will be a slightly different scenario from some of the legislations we've seen being passed, not just in this administration, even in previous administrations where you either, hardly hear about what is going on, or midway in the beginning you hear the announcement and then when it is passed you hear it. But the fact that stakeholders are highly interested and we are seeing the tension and the sentiments rising high speaks to the importance of this reform. So I'm very happy and excited with what the issues in the reform has thrown up to the polity, which will be addressed now. And going forward, will set up a platform, for a more solid polity that will be front-facing in terms of how we collect, manage, and administer our taxes going forward. And of course, the impact, as the case will be further down the line.
Right. Well, if you ask me, I think the most contentious part of the tax reform bills is the value-added tax, which is three-pronged. If you look at it critically, we're looking at three-pronged issues there. Now, the first one is probably who should collect it. That's the first issue we're seeing, whether it is the federal government or the states as a result of the fact that it is on the residual list. That's one. And then number two, the proposed change to a derivation-based model. That's the second issue we're seeing with that. And the third one is the progressive increment from 7.5% to 15% by 2030. Looking at all of these issues or all of those questions that have surrounded the VAT, what are your thoughts? I'd like you to address each of them.
Well, number one, the issue of which one is number one?
Okay, so for number one, we are looking at who should collect it, the states or the federal government.
Very well, very well. So for that, I think that has been said that federal government will collect and it will be shared in line with the provisions of the Constitution. So that is settled. And I have not heard one dissenting voice with regards to that over time. It has been like that. And even amongst the issues that have been raised by the 19 governors or other stakeholders, nobody is arguing with that because obviously that is the best way to administer the tax from a central point of view. So that the basis, now going to the second question, to move from collection by remittance to collection by derivation, and to add to what you said in your intro, is not only allocation by consumption, it is also addressing the issue allocation by production, which is very, very key for those that should know, including our northern brothers and sisters. Allocation by production has been a very big gaping hole in this current reform, which will be addressed. So allocation by consumption and allocation by production, which will speak to equity, which will speak to balance, and which will, remove the current scenario where, one or two states in Nigeria, particularly Lagos and Rivers, are the ones taking what you call the cream, of the, VAT collection, which is not supposed to be. So as far as I'm concerned, we are moving in the right direction with regards to that as far as the provisions are concerned. Now, the third one, I think should be the focal point of stakeholders, not the first and the second. Why am I saying so? The issue of the increment from 7.5 and after 1 year to 10 and all that. As a strong proponent of the tax reform, I was expecting stakeholders to hold on to this and say, look, we may agree with the allocation by derivation, but the current socio-economic headwinds and the vagaries it is impacting on the people, on the citizens and the businesses in Nigeria, it will be wrong timing that part of this current reform at this particular stage of the reform, we should increase it, notch it to 7.5. Most likely it should be notched further down the line. So you can have a sequence of events that will address the reform, but the increment of the VAT at this point of the reform shouldn't be what should be flagged out. And I think that is the kind of focus stakeholders should be looking at to negotiate in terms of the reform. So we agree with the reforms, but we will not agree with an immediate increment in VAT at the point of initiation of this reform, considering the impact on subsidy has had on the polity, the dollar, issue we are having with regard to monetary policy, the increment in cost of living, the high inflation and all that. And it is coming, interestingly, at the end of 2024. We don't know what is coming in first quarter, second quarter, 2025. So I think those are the issues that should be addressed by stakeholders as part of the negotiations to be considered in reviewing, the bill as it is going through legislation by critical stakeholders. That should be the kind of focus, and that is my contribution with regards to 7.5 increment immediately at the beginning of the implementation of the reform.
All right, so talking about derivation, I think it's something we probably need to pay attention to because that's what so many persons are sort of holding on to. And talking about that, I've heard arguments for and against, and some persons are saying that this particular derivation formula is going to be to the benefit of Lagos and Rivers State. How true is that?
That is absolutely not true. And I don't know why people of letters, intellectuals, academics refuse to read the bill. Perpetua, I've said it and I would not stop saying it, even if I sound like a broken record. Unless you read the bill or unless you read any document, you cannot authoritatively and reasonably and even sometimes sensibly speak to the issues. That is the point, and I don't know how, based on the content of the bill as it is before the National Assembly, I've not seen anywhere, I've read that bill deliberately so, in the interest of this country. I'm a public figure. I can't come and start speaking and spewing what is not there. There is nowhere there that the reform is speaking to, allocation to Lagos and Rivers. That is the status quo in terms of allocation by remittance. Allocation by derivation, or like I said, also allocation by production, is removing the focal point of remittance from the headquarters of these companies, which is Lagos, and also Rivers when you consider the IOEs in the oil and gas. So it is a very straightforward conversation that I would not like us to overflog it, except if we are speaking to the details of the allocation. But I don't want to give credence to people that speak without basis. The contents of that bill is speaking to allocation by derivation and allocation by production. That alone tells you that definitely Lagos and Rivers will not be. They will be the ultimate quote and unquote losers from the point of view that they've been having it free for a long time. And of course, it was beneficial to them.
Mr. Yusuf,
don't forget.
Mr. Yusuf, I'd like you to probably break this conversation down. So before now, what was happening? What we had before was a situation where maybe out of 10 companies in the country, 10 or 7 of them are in Lagos. And so it was all attributed to Lagos State. So the VAT was attributed to Lagos State. So Lagos State was earning more. Meanwhile, we have Nigerians in other states consuming these products. But because the headquarters are in Lagos, Lagos was getting the attribution for it. That's the remittance, right? And now we're moving to a new model, which is, consumption-based. So it means that anywhere we have Nigerians consuming products, as long as Nigerians are consuming these products in these various places, that money will be attributed to that particular state, right? Is that what we're talking about? And also, I'd like us to have this particular slide. There is a slide that sort of breaks it down, a simulation talking to us about what this means. If we can have that slide up, that slide on simulation for VAT. So that will also help us. I'd like you to also speak to us based on that particular slide. Now, this is it, giving us a simulation telling us what used to be the remittance model and then the consumption model. That's the current model up there, where let's say, based on Lagos population and some other things, you're seeing Lagos getting 100%, and then current derivation 120, and then you see all of those down there. I don't know if you could just speak a little to this and how that at the end of the day, based on this proposed model, Lagos may not be getting what it used to get. That's why, based on the proposed model, we're seeing a situation where Lagos will be losing 17% of what it used to get. And Lagos State has actually agreed, and Lagos State is in support of this particular bill. So I'd like you to speak to all of this and how that some other states will start having, some increments, 16%, 2%, 13%, 10%, and even 8%. I would like you to just speak to this so, even the person with the simplest of mind will understand what we're talking about.
Let me use the consumption in one part and the production. For consumption, I've said it somewhere else. Let's use Sokoto cement, for example. Sokoto cement, BUA is producing Sokoto cement in Sokoto. So what allocation by production means is currently when BUA produces the cement, all the VAT will go to consumption and allocation will go to Lagos because the headquarters of BUA is in Lagos. But what it means is that for the production of cement now, there will be a fraction of the allocation that hitherto will go almost 100% to Lagos that will now be deferred or credited to Sokoto because that is the point of production. There will be a fraction of the VAT that will go back to any state where Sokoto cement is procured and used for construction. So let's take, for example, somebody buys Sokoto cement in Kaduna State, 100 tons of Sokoto cement in Kaduna State. The current situation is the total VAT that will be derived from the purchase of that or procurement of that Sokoto cement in Kaduna will go to Lagos, whereas it was procured and it is consumed or used in Kaduna. In this case, the value of the VAT of the 100 tons will be amortized and be credited to Kaduna. Likewise, if 50 tons is bought in Bauchi or 20 tons is bought in Ebonyi, that is allocation by consumption or production. You can also use MTN subscription as an example for communication. The MBS told us that last year, Q1, for MTN subscribers, Lagos was had the highest subscribers with over 26 million subscribers, followed by Ogun State, 13 million subscribers, and then Kano, over 12 million, Bayelsa, 1.6, Ebonyi, 1.9 million subscribers. The current status is that the entire VAT collected from these subscriptions will go to MTN headquarters in Lagos. The reform by virtue of allocation by consumption, means that the value of the VAT of 26 million subscribers will be the only value that will be ascribed or credited to Lagos State, as against 100% across Nigeria. Then Kano will enjoy the value of the 12 million subscribers that used, MTN within that period under review and be credited to Kano State, and it will go on and on. And that is why I said this will speak to balance and equity. Whereas as it is today, the entire VAT will go to the headquarters of an IOC or a corporate in Lagos, which will not be the case after when and if the reform is implemented.
All right, let's look at, the breakdown of this. We're seeing a situation where we're saying derivation should have 60%. Yes, and then that equity should have 20%, and then the third one, population, should have 20%. There are those who are saying this is too much. I mean, we're looking at a situation where what we used to have was probably 50% based on equality, 30% based on population, and then 20% based on derivation. What do you make of this? Is that jump too high? From 20% derivation to 60% derivation. There are those who are saying it's too much. We should have made it maybe 40% and not 60%. That's a leap.
I totally disagree. This is the only way we will move from a corporate culture or a national culture of living or remittances and hands out perpetual. I think the concept is to push us towards, in the mid to long term, a national culture where subnationals will be focused on value creation and creating wealth, because you will know that you will eat what you earn. If you know that you will eat what you earn, you will wake up every morning pursuing the target to get that which you should earn. As against, we collect from a whole pot and everybody will come cap in hand. For those that work harder than others, everybody will get almost the same, or people that didn't even do anything will get everything. So I think 60%, as far as I'm concerned, is okay, so that the focus will be in value. I'm not discountenancing the value of population and all that, but I think the focus on derivation it should be the key word for us to drive us, especially as subnational, to value creation, value innovation, and creation of wealth, rather than this sitting down and waiting for somebody to collect and then we share. So I totally agree with the 60%. Of course, it's subject to negotiation by stakeholders, and that is what I'm expecting stakeholders to do. Negotiate those numbers along the lines of reasoning, along the lines of data, and at the end of the day, to have a position that is in the interest of the country, of the overall interest of Nigeria.
Well, based on the simulation we just saw, it seems to me that at the end of the day, having that derivation at that particular percentage is to the benefit of almost everybody, because we're seeing states beginning to gain. You're seeing some states having extra 16%, extra 2%, except, of course, for Lagos that is losing 17%. So, how did this conversation get this way? How did it even start in the first place? Why do we have people kicking against this?
Well, Perpetua, culture, as Peter Drucker, the renowned leadership expert said, culture will always eat strategy for breakfast. And that is what we are seeing. We have a strategy in terms of tax reform that will be in the overall interest of people. But the national culture, original culture, is blinding people from seeing that it is actually even going to benefit them. And surprisingly, even political leaders and traditional rulers and religious leaders are not seeing the value, because culture blindfolds us, and that is how deep and how strong culture is. It is incumbent upon the committee, it is incumbent upon political leadership at national level, in this case, sponsor of the bill, the executive bill, the federal government, to continue working the system. Culture is a very difficult thing to change, Perpetua. I understand the excitement, but you see, truth will unveil everything. Emotional intelligence in engaging those that are concerned to show them clearly the benefit. And by this, I'm not talking about political class, the governors or the senators, who, as far as I'm concerned, have their own, parochial interest. It is very clear. But the strategy of federal government, the corporate strategy now should be, the communication strategy is to address these issues to citizens of this country. Who are the people that actually gave the mandate to Mr. President or the governors? The days of governors going to tell their people's stories should be over. This should be open now. It has, inadvertently, they have made it to be more open to public scrutiny. So I call on everybody to read the business, especially the elites, and to engage people and to show them, as you are showing us now on the screen, brilliant way of demonstration or dimensioning these issues, so that everybody will see what it is. And to go beyond that, to translate it into vernacular, into our local dialects, for the market women, for the Okada riders, for everybody to know. Because part of the narrative that is being passed around is there is hunger in the land, and it is the people that are hungry that will be paying the tax. Whereas the tax reform has told us that the vulnerable are exempted, minimum wage people earners are exempted. There's about 30% of tax waiver that will be off. Corporate and small and medium-scale enterprises. Indeed, the bigger businesses will be the ones that will be taxed. Those are the bullet points that should be addressed, and for people to understand that this, and the issue of whether or not it is antithetical to some religions, which I believe there are mischievous ways of killing the bill. Of course, it's not a perfect document, but I believe the engagement should be along this line, so that people will have clarity with regards to the value, first of all, the intent and the value. And like I said, for example, if you start killing the conversation about 7.5% at the initial stage of the implementing the reform, to push it down the line when the economy is better, will be something that will be gladdening into the hearts of even those that are supposed to pay the 7.5. Because indeed, the rate of inflation and the rate of the socio-economic vagaries will not be good for us to say the 7.5 would be part of the implementation plan at the beginning, maybe in the mid to long term. But overall, we should not throw away the baby with the bathwater just due to sentiments. But this cultural issue has to be addressed by communication, engagement, and consultation.
Absolutely, that has to be addressed. Thank you so much, Baba Yusuf, strategist, policy advisor, and Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company. Thank you for your time on Business Edge today. We appreciate it.